the big problem. Their water intake is so close to the water level now in Lake Mead that they're actually spending $1 billion to construct the third straw. They're basically building a bathtub drain from under here all the way back over to Vegas. Because if the water gets any closer to their intake valve, by law, they're not going to be able to use it. So we're fearing some very significant changes in infrastructure. Vegas, at the same time, which is very interesting to me when I learned this, they wrote a law of the river in 1922, which basically divvied up the Colorado River into 7 states. They cut it up into different pies. And Vegas didn't really exist in 1922, so nobody expected there to be this booming oasis dream. So they didn't give them very much water. So Vegas is now forced to use their water very wisely. They recycle a lot of their fountains and pools. They do mandatory pool coverings. A lot of the fountains are gray water. They've been taking the smartscaping, zero-scaping to another level. They realized 70% of their water from the Colorado River was going to people's front lawns, so they started a program where they would actually pay people $2 a square foot, it's now $1.50, to tear out their front lawn. I took that first picture at 8 in the morning. I took that picture the same day at 11. Crew came in, whipped out the lawn, gave a guy a check, and adios. And the hope, of course, is that the oasis dream that many of us may love and enjoy will be able to continue on some level, but also the oasis dream for critters like this, the Rocky Mountain toad that had a love affair with my camera when I was looking for humpback chub, wouldn't leave me alone. They'll have water too. The Gila River downstream, this was taken in 1936, one of the last tributaries of the Colorado. That's today. That was taken by my friend John Waterman, who paddled the length of the Colorado River. And then we come back down into Yuma, Arizona, right before the Colorado River crosses over to the U.S.-Mexican border. A massive amount of lettuce production here, agriculture throughout the region. And so if you're sitting in this room and you say, this is interesting, Pete, and Colorado River is beautiful, maybe I'll go raft it one day. But, I mean, come on, I got plenty of water here in Washington, D.C. Why does this concern me? It actually concerns all of us on some level, because every piece of lettuce that you buy in a grocery store in the months of December and January come from the Colorado River. It's the only place that supplies the nation. It's basically the nation's salad bowl comes from this part of the world. So we all eat the Colorado River, whether you are aware of it or not. I grew up on a cattle ranch. I'm not opposed to the production of beef if it's done wisely. I don't know if this is the wisest method, having feedlots in the Imperial Valley where it's 128 degrees. So I think we need to start moving towards smart agriculture. There's also some antiquated laws where if you don't use your water, you'll lose it. So there's farmers in this area that are growing 5, 6 cuttings of alfalfa and then actually shipping it to Asia because they don't want to lose their water even though they don't need the money. So in some ways we're actually exporting some of our water in the form of alfalfa to Asia. And then you come after to the last major dam on the river. There's 12 major dams on the river. This is the Morelos Dam. This is the U.S.-Mexican border. For 22 miles, the river becomes the border and runs due south. And if you go below the dam, which I did with John when he was paddling, just 2 miles into Mexico, you come to the end of the river. Ben Franklin said, we learn the value of water when the well runs dry. This is the well running dry, and this is what it looked like when I was paddling through.
What is this stuff?
All I know is I'm not that excited to get into this water.
So this is what's become of the mighty Colorado.
Yeah. So we packed up our boats 90 miles shy of the sea and started walking. There were many times where I wondered why the hell I was carrying a boat on my back. The Colorado River has run to the Sea of Cortez for 6 million years. Not a single drop of it has run naturally to the sea since 1998. It was one of the largest desert estuaries in North America. This is the western flank of it over on the Baja side. 3,000 square miles, jaguars, cottonwood forests. Took me 2 days to find this image. That's what we've changed it to. Some people say, well, who cares about the delta, you know, why should we put water down there? But I can pretty much guarantee you this guy cares. 20,000 Cocopa Indians used to live in the delta. This was their traditional fishing grounds. This guy learned to fish here. It's dried up in his lifetime. And I'm pretty sure if this happened to my river in my backyard, I'd probably feel similar. I'd feel frustrated. Just to give you an idea of where that is exactly, this little red circle is the center of that's the delta, and that little Frappuccino pit I was paddling, it is on the kind of the middle bottom third of that circle. So I think of these rivers often as arteries. They help connect communities, they actually help connect wildlife, they support our agriculture, they keep salinity in our water table at bay. Potentially, they connect our human spirit on some level. So I think that Colorado today is a very powerful metaphor on so many levels because it shows us what happens when we ask too much of a limited resource. It disappears. I ended here in the Delta. This last spring there was an experimental pulse flow thanks to the hard work of very, very many from a vast group of people, and this is what became of the river. This was actually less than 1% of the river's annual flow. It was Mexico's water. It was part of a new agreement called Minute 319. Very interesting because Mexico basically had an earthquake that fractured its irrigation system. They said, we need some help. We can't store water anywhere. It's time to work together for a change. So they went to the U.S. and this is 2 miles in. This is about where that Frappuccino pit was. Beautiful scene of people coming out from all over Mexico, not only restoring the vegetation but the spirit of the river. Anyway, Mexico said we need help, and the U.S. said, all right. So they came back to the table and said, all right, we're going to renegotiate Mexico's water. They do get an allocation, but now they're going to make sure that Mexico's allocation shares in surplus and shortage, and that they'll dedicate some water to the Delta. So this was that water dedicated. It was released for 8 weeks to see how it did, to try to spawn some of the seedlings, cottonwoods and willows, and it was pretty remarkable. We took paddle boards and canoes all the way across it. In 1922, Aldo Leopold took a canoe across the Delta, and he wrote, the river was nowhere and everywhere, for he could not decide which of 100 green lagoons to take to the sea. Beautiful line that I've used over and over at Water Talks about the Colorado River, and I never ever thought that I would actually see this and paddle across a green lagoon in the Delta. So it's very encouraging to see that we can make a change.
Over that, not through it.
This is an improvement, I swear. You're moving. This is called moving an inch an hour. Bushwhacking this terrain in a trickle of water with a paddleboard is an upgrade. Trust me. What are we doing here? The last time I came here, I walked 90 miles across a dry, forgotten river channel. My backyard river, the Colorado, I've been chasing its flow for years. Most people think of it as that loved architect of the Grand Canyon, carrying the memory of the Rocky Mountains near my home in Colorado. But it is different down here, at the end of our skilled plumbing on this Southwest lifeline. I've sucked it dry, so we can eat baby spinach in January. But in the spring of 2014, something happened. 2 countries decided to work together to restore a delta. The hands of many lifted the gates on the Morelos Dam and released a temporary pulse of water, less than 1% of the river's flow. Mexico's allocated agua into the delta to see what would happen. A river of sand became wet once again, and a fiesta ignited downstream. Locals celebrated the return of their Rio. And native species exploded with seeds. The river party only lasted a few weeks, though. To partake, we did what any river lovers would do. We floated it by canoe, paddleboard, and eventually slogged it by foot, crossing the shallows.
I believe this is the Colorado. It's hard to tell because generally the real Colorado has no water in it. But as you can see, it's pretty friggin' nice river right now.
Amazing. Usually, this part of the river is completely dry. It's sand, no? And it's been many years like that.
And on May 7th, after 9 13-hour-long paddling days,
I'm so tired I can barely
we
stand.
crossed 90 miles of the delta and reached the sea. It was the first and only paddleboard crossing of the new delta, and the first time the Colorado River kissed the sea in nearly 2 decades. On many levels, it was a preposterous journey, foolish and even wrong-headed.
I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere.
It was also beautiful and symbolic. That with a relative trickle, we can bring a river back to life if we try.
VOA, exploring the world around us. Signs of fall are everywhere in the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area in northeastern Pennsylvania. National Parks traveler Micah Meyer was glad to take advantage of its many seasonal attractions.
I'm surrounded by native rhododendrons, and come late spring, they will bloom in purple, magenta, and pink colors.
Walkways and bridges guide visitors through a changing landscape of fallen leaves and swollen creeks to the park's many spectacular waterfalls. On the morning Micah visited, they were especially powerful, following a day of heavy rainfall. In this section of the park, called Child's Play, there are a number of bridges that crisscross waterfalls, all within an easy 3-kilometer loop. The 283 square kilometer park spans the border of the northeastern states of New Jersey and Pennsylvania and offers spectacular views of the Delaware River and beyond. Julie Daawo, VOA News, Washington. Carol Highsmith has been called America's photographer. She's been traveling the U.S. for more than 3 decades, taking pictures of the people and places that make America unique.
When I go out across America, what do I photograph? Everything. Someone said to me, well, why would you photograph the Golden Gate Bridge, for instance? Everybody's taking photographs of it. Yes, there will be images of the Golden Gate Bridge that may exist 500 years from now, but the ones that we know will exist in high resolution will be mine at the Library of Congress.
Highsmith is collaborating with the Library of Congress in Washington, the largest library in the world, to capture as many images as she can.
It's important that we have our beautiful scenes tucked away in a place that knows all about preservation.
Her vast collection, all copyright-free, includes many memorable images of America's national parks.
I've been to most of them, and it's everything from the spectacular and vast Grand Canyon to wintertime scenes of Yellowstone.
At Yellowstone, America's first national park, she was mesmerized by the bison.
I would say really in all the wildlife images I've taken, and I've taken a lot, the bison are the best in a sense that they look like they come from 100,000 years ago. You're looking at this vast, gorgeous landscape of Yellowstone, and the winter and the fall and the spring, and you're seeing the bison babies, and all of the calves, and you just think about, will this always be?
Highsmith shoots at all hours and every weather condition, and has even had to face her fear of flying.
So I finally get to Alaska, and I'm going to Denali, and I hire a plane to take me up there. The whole way there, I'm thinking, how can I get out of this? I just say, you must do it. So I did it. But to photograph it, and then to photograph Ruth Glacier, which is huge, and to know that maybe someday it'll be gone. It was just an experience and a half.
It's that fear of iconic American landscapes and landmarks one day disappearing that motivates her.
They say Yellowstone, it could just blow up. Will the bison be there in Yellowstone? The Washington Monument. We had an earthquake here in Washington, D.C. That whole thing could have just collapsed. So I'm just there to capture it as it looks right now.
Some of her experiences have been especially meaningful.
So I'm at Ford's Theater 150 years after Lincoln died, right there. And there are reenactors, and there was this man who held a candle, and that's how his face was lit. I thought, whoa, you can almost feel like what it must have felt like to be there at that night. I also photographed, for instance, the coat that Lincoln wore the night he died, with his bloodstains on it. So to be close to these artifacts is just incredible.
Carol Highsmith will be remembered not only for her work, but for the singular act of generosity that has defined her career.
I'm just glad to be there. I'm glad to have this as my job.
Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.
You can see it in the eyes of every woman and man in America's heartland, living close to the land. There's a love for the country and a pride in the brand in America's heartland, living close to the land in America's heartland.
Hello and welcome to America's Heartland. I'm Paul Ryan. There's a story that's woven deep into the tapestry of American life. It's about these wide open spaces, the soil, the small town, the families that farm and ranch throughout the heartland and bring to the rest of us the food on our tables and so much more. It's about people working from sunup to well beyond sundown. They are good people, and we often model our character as a nation on them. We've met many such people right here on America's Heartland, but the glimpses were brief, and the question is still there. What is a day in the life of a modern American farm family really like? Our Jason Schultz and Pat McConaughey went to the little town of Amadon, North Dakota to find out. It made for this unusual and fascinating show.
North Dakota's Slope County. It's the most sparsely settled land in the lower 48 states.
This is Amadon, the county seat. With a population of about 20, it's the smallest in the country. 5 miles from town is Seven Hat Ranch. Donald Nordby and his wife Sarah and their 3 children, Hannah, Ty, and Tate, work 4,000 acres in livestock and grain.
We and the Nordbys had never met. Yet with true heartland hospitality, they invited us to follow them through their day, from dawn to dusk.
When we arrived just before 7 on a morning in mid-May, the sun had been up about an hour. So at the Nordbys, morning chores were already underway.
We have to feed the steers. I like seeing them in the morning and afternoon.
And we'll catch the horses. Come and eat breakfast first.
It's an equal opportunity kitchen. Donald and Sarah both handle the cooking.
And we're supposed to go over and work some cattle for him tomorrow. I mean tonight around 5.
You feed them steers?
Breakfast, it's first come, first serve.
Here's some apple juice.
So now what are you guys doing now?
We have to catch the horses for Dad.
It's a big day for the horses.
There's 3 right there. Okay.
There's going to be a roundup.
Hey.
Hannah and Ty are ready with halters.
Hey now. Hey boys. Hey boy, hey boy. Hey boy. Okay.
Which ones were they?
This one, and the new horse. There.
But 2 horses aren't cooperating.
Hey boy. Oh boy. Alright. They're over by the shop. Just 2 of them.
Which 2?
The new 2.
Where did they go?
They're over by the shop. And they're hard to catch. Okay. Yeah, you can't get through that thing there. Mom, can't get through that. Oh, Kai's got one.
It's time for Donald to saddle up. There are 175 cows to bring in.
I like it because you get a variety of work, you know. Right now it's helping neighbors and branding calves and getting cattle out on grass. I don't have no one telling me what to do other than my banker sometimes wants some money. But
What is that there you're working with?
Hook pick.
What are you pulling out?
Dirt and rocks and poop.
whoa.
It's okay. It's okay.
Me too.
I'll time that rail. Dale and I will go get them other cows in.
Which ones are you getting in?
Well, I got to get these down here.
Okay.
And then sort them.
All right.
Before we take the big group.
Okay.
2 neighboring ranchers are coming to help. That's the way it works out here.
Well, what I was thinking is we'll pull them cows out and bring them down the road, over the hill, and then we'll come through the gate and then into this big pen. Right?
Got it.
Well, then we get boiled eggs. We can make you an egg salad sandwich. Here, put this in your lunch bag.
What happened to the meat?
It's being roasted. You can have it for, we're going to go on a picnic tonight. Yeah?
Sarah, Hannah, and Ty put together their school lunches.
Abby's hand is up.
Hey, Tater.
Tate, just woken up, bursts into action.
Do we have apples?
You twist that. You know how to twist it, Ty? Huh?
No thanks.
You mean no thanks?
You don't like for breakfast.
Yeah, we had bacon, Tate. You want some bacon?
Stop eating it.
But mostly what we
There's
need.
a portable DVD case.
And here, I think this is for the school too.
Yeah. Music.
Oh,
So you got a salad, a sandwich, and you each have an apple. How's
got
that
fish.
sound? Good.
Oh, that's steak. Looks good. It smells like fish.
Okay, so we're almost ready to go here? Yeah.
So now we're off to a school with 4 students.
You know, our kids have been doing very good in school. Hannah's practically straight A's this time.
Tate, when we took you along, you promised that you weren't going to say much and you were going to be a good boy. Well, you're going to be right on time, you guys. You're not going to be late today.
Sarah considers her children lucky in the matter of school. The schoolhouse is only 5 miles away. 4 students, different grades, 1 room.
He's kind of a growly son of a bitch. Walks party aggressively up.
The cowboys have a lot of ground to cover. The cattle are spread across 2 separate ranges.
Well, you just kind of get them herded up and headed in the right direction. And the cows, they kind of know what's going on, you know. They go through this every year, so, you know, the cows kind of got an idea what's going on. Got it? Will come in and we're going to pour with Dectomax, which is to help with flies a little bit and then internal parasites. And then the cows get PregGuard 9. It's a shot you need to give about a month before we breed, and it's for venereal diseases and reproductive diseases. And then the calves, all we're going to give them is a 7-way shot. We'll probably put $1,000 worth of vaccine into these cattle today.
Home from the schoolhouse, Sarah heads to the barn.
They're setting up.
Start there and spray this down right in here, and then you can spray this walkway and go that way.
You want to help, Tate?
On your math test, remember labels. Remember to ask if you have any questions, okay? If you need help reading anything.
For Hannah and Ty, school will be out soon, and that means tests.
Typical of 5 words. It's not where you switch the top 2, you do.
Remember labels and to read carefully. And I will just be working at my desk.
I can need this too.
It's 12:15. I haven't seen Sarah stop moving since we arrived.
But what about just time for you? You ever think you might want to go to a spa or...
I've heard of that. You've heard of it. Maybe I'll try it sometime. I don't think they have any in North Dakota. Sometimes you go, I think the closest you get is wading in the creek and letting the mud go between the cracks in your toes. You just have to enjoy what is given to you in the moment. You take lemon and make lemonade from it. You have to find a way to not grouch about it and just realize the good side of things.